In Germany, you have to have health insurance to get a visa, to get a residence permit, to find a job, or even to start a company by yourself. In this video, we'll show you how to choose between your three options, those being public, private, and expat health insurance, and try and make sure that you understand what you're getting into before you sign up. Let's get started. First up, public health insurance. Let's give you a brief overview. Public health insurance is the most popular option in Germany because a lot of people have to have public health insurance. About 80% of people in Germany have public health insurance. Usually that's going to be most employees as well as most students under 30, but we'll get into the details later. The main thing about public health insurance is that the cost is based on your income. The more you earn, the more you're going to pay, and vice versa. Private health insurance, on the other hand, is much less popular, with about 13% of the population choosing it. It's much less popular because not everyone is allowed to join it. You have to earn above a certain amount in order to be eligible. People who have private health insurance are usually employees that have a high income, a lot of freelancers or self-employed people, or some students over 30 that are able to generate a certain amount of income. Unlike public health insurance, private health insurance costs are not based on your income. Instead, they're based on what insurance companies call a risk profile. A risk profile is an estimation of how much you're likely to cost an insurance company if something goes wrong. The factors that impact your risk profile are your age, your current health, as well as your desired level of coverage. Those three put together create your risk profile and will also lead to the cost of your policy. Expat health insurance is the last option available to you, and that's usually for people who are not eligible for public or private. That might be because you don't have a job yet or because you are not earning enough. It's usually the cheapest option available, but not everyone is allowed to get it. For example, employees are not. Expat health insurance is short-term health insurance. It's going to come with some trade-offs. For example, it's not going to cover any pre-existing conditions, but on the other hand, it's also the most affordable type of insurance and is designed specifically for people who are applying for a visa or trying to get a residence permit. Now that you have a brief idea of the three options available to you, I'm going to try and help you understand which one you should pick. Let's start with employees. If you're an employee, you don't always have a choice. Your options depend on how much you earn. If you earn above a certain threshold, that amount changes every year, you are allowed to choose private health insurance or public health insurance. But if you earn below that threshold, we'll keep an updated figure for the current year in the description, you can only get public health insurance. You're never eligible as an employee for expat health insurance. If you're a student, your options are not based on how much you earn, but rather how old you are. If you're under 30, you should almost always pick public health insurance. The government subsidizes the cost for students, which means it's tremendous value if you sign up for TK, Barmer, or any other public health insurance provider. If you're over 30, it's a little bit more complicated because you're eligible for public, private, and expat health insurance. There's a lot of caveats, so in the description, we'll link a video on how to choose your health insurance once you're over 30. If you're a freelancer, your options depend on where is it you're from, as well as how much you earn. As an EU citizen, or from the UK or Switzerland, you can choose between public, private, or expat, but public tends to be quite expensive for freelancers because you don't have an employer who can share the cost of that health insurance with you. For that reason, we advise that you look into private health insurance or expat health insurance. If you're not from the EU, it's complicated to join public, though not impossible. If you really want to join public health insurance, you can always try to apply, but just be ready in case you get rejected to join either private or expat health insurance. Again, in the description, we'll link a video explaining how freelancers from outside of the EU should choose their health insurance and what options are available to them. If you're a retiree moving to Germany, your options depend on where you've been insured in the past. If you're moving from an EU or EEA country, you can usually keep your home country's health insurance and just transfer it over to Germany. In the short term, that usually just means using your European health insurance card, also called as EHIC. You'll be eligible for all types of treatments using it. But if you're staying for the long term, you're going to need to use an S1 form. We'll also link that in the description. The S1 form just allows your current health insurance company to transfer you over to a public health insurance company here in Germany. But if you're not moving from an EU or EEA country, including Switzerland, you're going to need to choose between private and expat health insurance. All right, with retirees out the way, we should have covered the options for almost anyone. In case you're a special case, feel free to contact us and we'll help you determine what's the best option for you. Still, it's not because you just know what health insurance options are available to you that you already know what you should pick, right? Sometimes you have 2 or even 3 options. So let's discuss what they're actually like, the differences, and how to choose between 3. Starting with public health insurance, since it's where most people are going to end up. First things first, how much does public health insurance cost? As I said earlier, public health insurance costs are based on your income, but there's a minimum and maximum amount you're going to pay. The exact cost tends to increase every year. Employees split the cost with their employer about 50-50, and the payment comes straight from your salary, so you don't need to worry about making the payment. However, as a self-employed person, you have to pay everything yourself, and the cost is based on your estimated income, which once it's not estimated anymore, but rather a factual income, then the insurance company either asks you to pay a little bit more or gets to reimburse you the difference. Students under 30 will always pay a fixed rate that's subsidized by the government. In 2025, that's about 130 euros a month, give or take. But the exact cost for employees, self-employed people, as well as students tend to go up every year. On screen, you'll see the current minimum, maximum, and student rates. But as I said, this changes all the time, so we'll keep updated numbers in the description. All right, that's great. You understand the cost, wonderful. But what do you actually get with public health insurance? The coverage is actually really solid, especially for the cost. If you're not earning a ton, it's very affordable and you get really good benefits because public health insurance will pay for everything that's medically necessary, meaning a doctor recommends it. And it will also include coverage for any pre-existing conditions. That means any health issues you contracted before joining public health insurance will still be covered. That's something that's quite rare in other policies like private or expat health insurance. In practice, it means you're covered for a variety of things, including GP visits and also most specialist visits, prescriptions, physiotherapy, basic dental care, vaccinations, cancer screenings, also long-term sick leave, as well as emergency care in other EU countries. It's super easy to get treatment here in Germany or even in the EU. All you have to do is show your health insurance card and then the billing happens between your doctor or your healthcare provider and the insurer. You never need to pay upfront and there's no reimbursement to ask for. So that's definitely one of the pros of public health insurance is that the coverage is quite solid. Public health insurance has a few other advantages. Starting with affordability, if you're not earning a lot, then the cost of public health insurance will be proportional, and that can be particularly helpful for people who are unemployed. But another pro is that it's very predictable, the cost. If you start earning more, then you know what you're going to be paying next year. It's also tremendous for students under 30. I think I've hammered that point quite a bit. If you're under 30, you get a massive discount thanks to the government, and it makes it essentially a no-brainer if you're eligible. Another pro of public health insurance is that it's very family friendly because any dependent, meaning non-working spouses or your children, can be covered for free. You don't even need to pay more if you have 6, 7 children. And finally, the last pro is that it's super easy to use. There's very little paperwork and you don't need to worry about reimbursements. And that's why public health insurance is often the safest and the option that is least likely to lead to any regrets. You can always change your mind and decide to switch to private health insurance or expat health insurance if you become eligible. With that said, public health insurance is not perfect. There's definitely some limits. There's many people who prefer private health insurance because if you earn a lot, public health insurance is quite expensive and you get the exact same coverage even if you pay twice as more as your neighbor. Another con of public health insurance is how slow it can be to access certain specialists. For example, accessing psychotherapy as a public health insurance patient can be very challenging or at least very time-consuming. You might wait weeks or months before you're able to get your first appointment. The reason why you might have to wait longer to see certain specialists is because a lot of specialists choose to keep most of their calendar free for private health insurance patients or might not even accept public health insurance patients at all. The reason is that when you're accepting public health insurance patients, it can be quite frustrating to deal with the insurance companies as a healthcare provider. And so that's why a lot of specialists decide to take only private patients or a minimum amount of public health insurance patients, which leads to very long wait times. Public also covers only what's called the cheapest effective treatment. The cheapest effective treatment is the most affordable version of a treatment that is supposed to treat your ailment or condition. It means that you're not going to be covered for anything that's frontier treatments. The newest, most qualitative treatments that cost a lot of money are generally not going to be covered with public health insurance, and you'll be stuck with the most common type of treatment available for your condition. And finally, some benefits, especially in the field of dental and vision care, are very limited. To give you an idea, 18 million people in Germany decide to get an additional health insurance specifically for dental so that they can improve the coverage offered by public. It's really not that good in the dental and vision field. That's something else to consider. Talking of things to consider, if you think that public is for you and you want to go ahead and sign up, there's just a few things I want to let you know first. One, all public health insurance companies offer very similar coverage. There's some very small differences. For example, what travel vaccinations are going to be covered, but it's nothing groundbreaking. So the main difference is really price and customer service. In the description, we'll link to a page that compares the 4 most popular providers here in Germany so that you can get a better idea of who you want to sign up with. I'm personally with TK, who's very English friendly, but you might want to choose one of the other providers listed in the description. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about public health insurance. Let's talk about private now. If you're eligible, you probably want to know how it works and whether or not it's worth the cost. Talking of which, how does the cost work in private health insurance? The answer is it depends, but the core idea is pretty simple. It depends on you, and it depends on you regarding 3 factors. The first one being your age, so younger applicants usually pay less. The second is your health history. So you fill out a questionnaire, sometimes you might have to visit a doctor, and then with that information, they're able to determine whether or not you're a health risk, whether or not you're going to be costing the insurance a lot of money. And then finally, the last factor is your coverage level. Do you want to have the best available out there and so are willing to pay a little bit more, or are you just looking for the bare minimum and thus will pay a little bit less? To give you a general idea of how much you can expect to pay, a 30-year-old employee might pay around 250 euros per month if they're healthy, whereas someone who has some pre-existing conditions and is also self-employed might pay closer to 600 to 700 euros per month. The exact prices vary a lot, so these are just general guidelines or examples. Private health insurance costs are best estimated by submitting a quote. You go to any insurance website that you like, you fill in a few questions, and then they'll come back to you usually pretty quickly regarding how much you're going to spend on the different tiers of coverage. In the description, we'll link to a private health insurance calculator we built that should help you get a clear idea of how much you're going to pay. All right, you know how much it costs. Now, the question is, what are the pros, what are the cons, and what do you actually get? Generally speaking, private health insurance will cover everything that public covers and a little bit beyond that. Some of the reasons that people choose private health insurance is because 1, you have faster access to specialists. As I said, a lot of doctors accept only private patients or keep their calendars free for last-minute appointments. 2, you have direct access to specialists. With public health insurance, you have to have a referral to go see a specialist like an orthopedic, whereas with private health insurance, you can generally go immediately to the specialist without needing to see your GP first. Private health insurance is also more flexible. You can choose a level of coverage that makes sense for you. If you know that you visit the doctor all the time, then you probably want to get really good coverage. But if you know that you're generally healthy and you see the doctor maybe once every few years, then you're going to be looking at cheaper plans so that you can save money in the long run. And then 4, the final advantage of private health insurance, you're eligible for a lot of financial incentives. So many insurance offer deductibles, which are just a certain amount that you pay by yourself out of pocket is what they call it before your insurance kicks in. And then your bigger deductible, the less you're going to be spending on your monthly premium. Other financial incentives include no claim bonuses or cashbacks. So the way that it works is for every year that you don't ask your insurance company to reimburse you, your insurance company will reward you with some amount of money to thank you for not costing them any money. So at Feather, the bonus, it starts at 489 euros for 1 year where you don't claim anything. But if you manage to stay claim-free for 5 years, that bonus climbs up to 2,042 euros per year. But just like public, private comes with some trade-offs that you should probably be aware of before you go ahead and sign up. So first, your premium stays the same regardless of your income. So if one day business is slow or you lose your job, you're still expected to pay the exact same amount. And so that can make it challenging in certain situations. The second con is that you have to pay all of the medical bills upfront. So if you go visit the doctor, you're paying cash or with credit card, getting an invoice, and then you're asking your insurance company to reimburse you. For very expensive bills, if you have to go do a hospital stay, it's possible to ask your insurance company to organize directly with the hospital or healthcare provider, but most of the time you're going to be the one paying first and then asking your insurance company to reimburse you. The third con is that it can be quite difficult to change your mind and switch to public health insurance if you're with private health insurance. There are a few cases where it's possible to do, and if you're really wanting to switch back to public, just contact us. We'll help you discover your options and understand what's possible for you. But as a general rule, not everyone can, and it can be very frustrating in case you decide to switch back to public. And then finally, the last con is that if you have certain pre-existing conditions like a long history of psychotherapy or maybe diabetes, it can be difficult to get insured. Generally speaking, there's 3 options when you have a pre-existing condition. So the first one being the insurer does not accept to cover you, and so you have to go ahead and find someone else who's willing to cover you. The second option is that they'll accept to cover you, but for a higher price. And then the final option when you have a pre-existing condition is that they'll accept you as part of the private health insurance program, but they will specifically exclude any treatment or cost associated with the pre-existing condition that you declared. Which applies to you always depends on the insurer, the exact condition, how much it's been bothering you in the past. So it's always worth applying and then seeing what people come back to you with and what kind of proposal you get to understand whether or not it's worth joining with the caveats attached. If you think that private health insurance is for you and you love what I'm saying, then before you sign up, I would highly advise that you talk to someone who is an expert in insurance. That can be someone from Feather, that can be an independent insurance broker, but definitely not a random person on Reddit. Try and speak to a professional, understand what options are available to you, because there's dozens of different companies out there and hundreds of different potential plans with different pros and cons to each of those different contracts. So chat with someone who you trust and that can give you a good recommendation for your situation. And finally, Expat Health Insurance. As a quick recap, Expat Health Insurance is a type of short-term health insurance, and it's designed for people who need to get coverage for their visa application or any other reason before they're eligible for public or private health insurance. By design, it's a temporary solution and it's visa friendly. It's not meant to be used until, your retirement years, but it's a good option if you need a health insurance when you're applying for a visa or a residence permit. If you don't have a job contract yet, which makes it very difficult to join public or private health insurance. If you're a student over 30, it's also the most affordable option out there that doesn't require you to have a certain amount of income before you can join. If you're a self-employed person who's not earning enough to justify the cost of public or private health insurance, then this is indeed a super affordable plan. And if you're only staying in Germany for the short term, maybe just a few years, it's a good idea to get expat health insurance just so that you can save on costs. Talking of which, how much does expat health insurance cost? It starts at just 72 euros per month for policies valid up to 5 years. If you need it for longer, it's possible, but usually you pay a little bit more. Expat health insurance has 3 main advantages. So the first one being it's the cheapest health insurance plan available in Germany. You're talking 2 or 3 times less the cost of public or private. It's also accepted for all visa and residence permit applications. Super handy in case you're not eligible for public or private yet. And finally, it's much easier to join. You can join pretty much regardless of what employment status you have or income you might be earning. The only exception for who is not accepted are employees. But it's not all pink and roses. There's definitely some cons that come with expat health insurance because, it's super affordable, so you have to have some trade-offs somewhere. The main trade-off is that there's no coverage for pre-existing conditions. Expat health insurance also has very limited preventative care. What preventative care means is any routine checkup, dentist cleanings, or similar treatments that might help you avoid health issues in the future, often not included or only partially reimbursed. It's also designed as a short-term solution and as a bridge between when you're moving to Germany and finally joining public or private health insurance. By default, the most affordable plans are only available for first-time residence permit applications. If you want to renew your residence permit, then you're going to need a slightly more expensive plan that's closer to the €150 range. If you think that expat health insurance is for you, I would highly advise to think of it as a bridge. Keep it for the short term, whether that be 1 year or 5 years. But whenever you become eligible for public or private, we advise that you switch over to one of those two because you just get better benefits and you're covered for more of life's mishaps in case you manage to join public or private. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's try and recap everything that we discussed today so that you can have just a clear idea of how is it that you can get insured today. Step 1 is to understand your situation and to clarify it. Before comparing anything, you need to know the answer to these questions. First, what's your employment status? Then, what's your income and how stable is it? Are you from the EU or are you from outside the EU? How long are you going to stay in Germany? Even if that's a broad estimate. And then finally, do you have any pre-existing conditions that needed to be covered? Once you have the answers to these questions, it should be pretty easy to understand which of the options you need to go with, public, private, or expat. Once you know the details of your situation, it's time for step 2, comparing your different options. I would say that there's 3 main ways of comparing your options. So the first one being using our recommendation tool, linked in the description. It's a quick and automatic quiz that gives you a first impression at which health insurance best fits your profile. Option 2 is to talk to someone at Feather. We're always happy to help. If you prefer a human conversation, you can just let us know what your answers from step 1 are, and then we can get you tailored guidance either via email, chat, or a quick phone call. And then option number 3 is to speak with an independent broker. They'll walk you through which insurer might accept you, explain differences in coverage, and also help you filter down between all the different plans and companies, which I know can be a little bit overwhelming. Once you've chosen a plan, you're ready for the third and final step, signing up. Depending on who you're signing up for, it might take a little bit longer than with others, but at Feather, it's super easy. All you need is a passport or an ID, as well as a proof of income. That can be an employment contract or freelancing invoices. Just head to our website, select the policy that makes the most sense for you, public, private, or expat, and then you should be good to go in just a few minutes. With public or private health insurance, it might take a couple of weeks before the insurance company gets back to you with a confirmation of coverage. But if you sign up for expat health insurance, you'll get your confirmation of coverage immediately. And that's it. You now know everything you need to know about choosing between public, private, and expat health insurance in Germany. The core idea is pretty simple. Public is the safest, private has the best coverage, and expat is a bridge. Please don't quote me on that. It's a general approximation. If you want all the details, please just head back to earlier in the video. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments or reach out to us through our website. We'd be happy to help. If you found this video useful, feel free to leave a thumbs up or subscribe. Thanks so much. Ciao, ciao.